Ciao, this is Renoir Boulanger. I'm a system administrator and I'm going to illustrate to you how we can enable and disable access to some paths on the CMS administration. In our case, we're going to make Fastly Varnish to lie to visitors if we enable or disable if we disable the access to the admin. The way it works is that we use VCL, which stands for Varnish Configuration Language, and describe and manipulate how to manipulate the requests and the responses and cache or lie to the visitor. So VCL is this language that's an extension of C, where we have that serves subroutines like that starts by VCL underscore, and you have access to elements in the life cycle of request response that between your visitor, user agent, browser, or command line, or anything else that talks HTTP or TCP. And then depending on the request, you can do manipulations. So we have when we receive the request, the proxy receives the request when it fetches the responses to the origin. And this is and there's other aspects of it, but in the case of allowing admin, what we want is that if we allow this to exist, we want to remove cookies so that the backend will not even see the cookie and then will not allow or generate the administration to the CMS. So the logic goes like this: if we have this, remove cookie because we don't want cookie at all, and if it's there, because of that it will hide cookies, right? And if we're in the admin context here with WP that ends by PHP, that doesn't end by PHP, but if I did that like this here, it would, and this would be problematic because sometimes the request, it's WP login, then $sign, these things equal, and then because the request would be like this, it would say hard requirement on .php, and this is not what we want here, right? But in the context here, when I want to allow us to see the debug view, I want to say when there is WP admin and ends by debug.php, so I'll be able to see what the action here we have when we enable it. So this is the VCL. When there's allow admin, remove cookies, and if it goes to a path that is not debug, which is for my demo purposes right now, then return a not found error. And when we get the response from the origin, if we get the set cookie, we do not want to keep it, we just want to strip it off. So the server, the client, the proxy, will not convey this to the client, so the other subsequent requests will not get the cookie header in their requests. So the way it works is that generally when you go to a site, what we do is that we make requests that we describe what is the language, what is the host, the user agent, what are the types we want. That generally we can even say the language and how we want to have it compressed. And so some people, what they do is that they put vary except encoding, and sometimes they would put also cookie or authorization header. But this is not a good thing, because the only cacheable responses are the ones that are get, that is not a response from a HTTP post, and that doesn't have authorization or cookie header in their requests. So by definition, implicitly, functionally what happens is that if you have a cookie header, it will not be cacheable. So here, because I had a clean request, my cache layer says that the page that I request has 67 seconds living of life, right? So this is what we want. So this page has not been hit by the web server behind the caching, the Varnish, didn't see the request, it just served it for me. So we can see here, if I go to a debug.php file, we can see everything that the web server received from my browser. So we see here cache control. So this is the response, this is the request. We see gzip deflate. So what happens is that accept encoding gets rewritten gzip here because we want to vary as least as possible on the accept encoding. So accept encoding here, what happens is that in the VCL we roughly just make sure that accept encoding is only one thing, because if in caching, if the cache goes gzip, this is one vary and this could be another very valid vary, although functionally it's the same, and this is also a vary. Even though it's the same, those will all be variants, and which will make the cache to keep all the response bodies different, even though the vary is on deflate and gzip. So that's why you want to do manipulations. So I'll show you all of this because in the request, if you go to the site, then I go to let's say I want to log in, right? I will log in. You see here WP login, then you see a set cookie. That is because my Varnish layer doesn't do any blocking. Effectively here, this is not set. I mean, this is set actually. I'm sorry. So if you go to configure, this is Varnish, Fastly. So I go in the service, I have content, allow admin request. So I can upload, so I uploaded the VCL here, uploaded the VCL, and then in content I can feature flip whether or not I want this to be viewable. So I enabled it, that's why you get access to cookie here, set cookie. So if I do a login, so first we see the set cookie and we see here, we see path / and then the cookie name, right? So it's a string and then there is a semicolon and then path and then equal. So it's path this. So I guess I don't remember by heart how cookie strings are separated. I should because it's been a while. So we have path here. So I guess that's the way it works. Yeah. So a cookie string is the key equal the value and the path. And generally we can have other headers like HTTP only and maybe expire. So what happened here is that we're in the login, we have 2 cookies, and then if I go, and if you notice here, we have age 0 because it's not cacheable. So if I go with another browser here, what we can do with Fastly is that you can add a header, Fastly debug. You can see it here. So Fastly debug here, and then I remove some headers. But if I go to the same page here with the network traffic inspector, I should see the response. I see more headers. So it didn't cache, it missed. And we see that it's being served by this layer. And I put notes here. So it had a set cookie, that's why it didn't got cache. So if I go to the admin and I log in here, then you will see the response here. WP login post. So we see location set cookie, and now we have something different here. So I guess I can, so this is a cookie, this is another cookie, this is another cookie, path, HTTP only. This is a cookie. HTTP only. That's very okay. Yeah, so we have all these cookies. They are generated. So we have, so basically what we want is that in WP Content plugin or in Backoffice Admin, we will have cookies that are only accessible through HTTP. So what I mean by this is that normally I could go here, document, cookie, and I could see the headers here. WP cookie, WordPress cookie check. But we don't see the ones that are HTTP only, so we only see those two. So if I want to see them, what you can do is ask the web server to serve you. You can ask the backend to generate you a dump of the server header, and then you can see what you receive here. So we are in Backoffice WP Admin debug, so we should see these cookies here. At least this one, the one that has Backoffice and Admin, because we are Backoffice and Admin. So if I reload this view, I should see cookie, and we see all the cookie string here that the backend receives. So all of this is fine because we're in the admin and we are allowing access to it. So what can be scary here is that I could go with this other browser here and add these. Let's do this. Technically what you can do is that you can add, technically what you can do, I will not do it, but you can add these cookies there in another browser, let's say this one, and then it could impersonate the other person in the other browser. I will not do it, but that's basically what happened a few years ago when we have something, an exploit called Firesheep, where people were listening on Wi-Fi networks and then would see the cookie and then just impersonate somebody else. I just say all of this to describe that when we want to block the WordPress admin, we just have to remove this flag here in VCL. So if, oh right, I didn't tell you the curl. So when I describe the variants here, if you remember here, so the request here, the request, we don't get a vary here, do we? It will be login, vary on accept encoding. So because what happens is that if I make a request to HTTP like this, I get the HTML payload. And Varnish, what it does is that it passes the request and gets the backend and then come back. And what I want to show is that if I add a header and I say accept encoding, I will receive the gibberish. So what we want is that Varnish strips off the accept encoding, gets the non-encoded version, keeps a copy, and then Varnish, when it receives the accept encoding, it will do it for you. So you have one variant, the version coming from the server, and it gets gzipped if your client receives it. So that's what I wanted to show you there. So now that we're in the admin and we want to disallow access to the admin, we can disable this feature flag here, allow admin, and deploy it. So I remove this, and then I can activate this version. So the VCL now should not have, here we had, so if I go to version 20, a version ago, I would see allow admin, and now I'm in this version, I don't see allow admin. So what happens is that regardless of the fact that I've been connected, that I have a valid session, that the server knows the session and it knows how to associate the session with the unique key here, it won't be able to see it because the web server doesn't even see it. So if I go do a reload, we just effectively disabled the back office, the access to the CMS. And even if we send a cookie here, we shouldn't even be able to see it. If I go to debug, I send a cookie, I reload, if I search cookie, It doesn't have cookie. The backend doesn't see it. If I go to the back office admin debug, I reload, I don't even see cookie. So that's why it works to disable the WordPress admin by doing this. In the same effect also, it optimizes the chances that your content gets cached, and that's what I wanted to illustrate. So I hope it answered your question. Enjoy!